Hi, I'm Jeremy Veldman. Welcome to the August 2020 meeting of the Memphis Astronomical Society. We've got a great program for you guys tonight, got a lot of material to cover, but before we do, just a few preliminaries. First of all, if you haven't already, please take a minute to say hi in the chat room, introduce yourself. Also, let me know how my audio is. Give me the thumbs up, give me the thumbs down. Hopefully you can hear me all right, hopefully you can see me all right. We are broadcasting live tonight, so I want to make sure that any technical issues are resolved on the front end. Now, our website is memphisastro.org. We're also on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and of course YouTube. And if you haven't already, please take a minute to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Over 950 subscribers, almost to 1,000, so help us out. If you haven't subscribed already, just take a minute to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Now, we got a loaded program for you guys tonight. With Comet NEOWISE coming last month, we thought we would take a few minutes to discuss comets in general, as well as some of your experiences viewing comets over the years. I've reached out to several of you. You've shared your most memorable comet experiences. We'll talk about those. And then Brian had the opportunity to interview Wally Pacholka. Wally is an astrophotographer, and his image of Comet Hale-Bopp was Time Magazine's Picture of the Year back in 1997. So don't miss that. Very informative interview. And that's just the first half of our program. In the second half, Keith and I had the opportunity to interview Sebastian Garcia, who's the founder and creator of Telescopius. It's a free online tool for astrophotographers and observers to help you more effectively plan your next observing session. Whether it's creating an objects list, analyzing weather conditions, even planning in advance. This is just a phenomenal tool. So be sure you stick around for the entire program because we've got a loaded amount of content for you tonight. Now, our website has some other great features on it, including a calendar of events. Of course, officially, we're still shut down due to COVID-19. That includes not only our live meetings, but also our observing sessions. However, there is a little bit of a caveat to that. We are playing things by ear when it comes to our observing sessions. If the weather's clear and the conditions are favorable, we may get back out again. In fact, we did it last month. Now, the board has drafted a set of guidelines that are intended to be in line with the CDC and the health organizations. And again, they're just guidelines, they're not rules, but they're really intended to help keep all of us safe during these unprecedented times. We did have a social distancing type observing session last month. Worked out very well. Everyone who came out, very grateful that you respected the guidelines, and there's no reason why we can't do it again. This is not meant in any way to be restrictive. We're not in the business of policing or enforcing anything. Anybody who gets an invitation from us is welcome to come out. All we ask that you do is just respect the guidelines. They're basically common sense, right? Social distancing, masks, and no sharing of equipment. I mean, I know that that's kind of counter to what our outreach intent is, but this is just not the time to be doing those types of activities. But if you have your own telescope or you just want to enjoy the night skies and we do open things back up, by all means, come out. Doesn't matter what age you are. Just again, we just ask that you be mindful and respectful of the guidelines as well as understand the risks that are involved. So, pay attention to your email, and we will send a notice out if and when we do decide to open things up. Now, we did have a virtual star party last month. Now, this was not an MAS event. We did participate, but it was actually put on by the Warner Park Nature Center. And there were some technical difficulties initially. Some of you probably saw that if you watched it, but it was actually a pretty interesting program. And we had astronomers all over the state of Tennessee that were showing objects live in their telescope via Zoom. We may be doing this again. I received an email notice that they're thinking about doing another one of these in late August. So if you enjoyed this event and you want to see it again, keep an eye on your email. We'll send a notice out if this actually transpires. Again, not an MAS sponsored event, but we are a participant, and it's kind of interesting. So keep your eye out for another potential virtual star party. If you're interested in joining the MAS and you're not on our email list already, go to the website joinmas.com, enter your name and email. We send notices out about once a week regarding upcoming events, observing sessions, whatever. Of course, we've been shut down, but Go to joinmas.com, enter your name and email. We'll be happy to add you to our email list. Now, when you become a member, you get access to the Meteorite, which is our newsletter. Our newsletter has some great content in it, including articles from some of our members, minutes from past board meetings, an astrophotography gallery, as well as a sky chart for the month, in this particular case, August. And by the way, for those of you who got the Meteorite in August, be sure you check out Bill Bussler's article. He did a survey on comets over the last 60 years. It's an excellent article, very well written, had some comments in there that I wish I had been around to see, unfortunately. So check out that article. For everyone watching tonight, we will give away these two documents. That is, of course, a link to our August sky chart and then a membership application. I'll have links to these two documents in the description below this video. If you are interested in becoming a member, simply download, print out, and fill out and email this document back to us at memphisastronomicalsociety@gmail.com. Or if you don't want to do that, just send us an email and we'll be happy to send you an electronic version of our membership application. And then you can just fill it out that way. So anyway, links to these two documents in the description below this video. Feel free to download them and print them off. Now, every 10 years or so, we have the opportunity to witness a great comet, give or take. Obviously, there's some exceptions to that with Hyakutake and Hale-Bopp 25 years ago. But this past month, with Comet NEOWISE paying us a visit and being naked eye visible, we thought we would take a few minutes to discuss comets as well as some of your experiences viewing them. Now, comets are, for lack of a better term, dirty snowballs. They consist of frozen ices, water ice, carbon dioxide, ammonia, as well as silicate materials, all kind of clumped together in a porous, dirty snowball conglomerate type object, anywhere from a couple kilometers to, in some cases, maybe 20 or 30 kilometers across. That's the size of the nucleus. They spend most of their lives in deep freeze in the outer regions of the solar system, but every once in a while they make their way in toward the inner solar system, and when they do, the solar radiation causes the solids on the surface to sublimate, transitioning instantly from a solid to a gas, and that's where we get these wispy tails and these bright, brilliant comas that are so indicative of a comet. They're fascinating objects, very visually appealing, despite being, again, just essentially a dirty snowball. Now, there are two types of comets. There are what's called the long period comets and the short period comets. Comets originate in the vast reservoir of leftover material in the outer regions of the solar system. And of course, you have the Kuiper Belt, which was discovered about 30 some years ago. That's the region of icy bodies just beyond the orbit of Neptune. That's where Pluto resides, anywhere from 30 to 100 astronomical units away. That's where the short period comets originate, like Halley's Comet. The long period comets come from the vast spherical region of icy bodies known as the Oort cloud. That's much further out. And this really gives you an idea of just how large the solar system really is. If you look at the region of the Kuiper Belt that goes beyond, well beyond the orbit of Pluto, it's just a very small section of the vast spherical region that is the Oort cloud. The Oort cloud is where the long period comets like NEOWISE and Hale-Bopp originate. NEOWISE, of course, we won't see that one for another 6,800 years. So, and again, there's a lot of mass out there. The Oort cloud, probably about 500 billion, give or take, icy bodies in deep freeze. Every once in a while, a star or a planet, some gravitational body will perturb one of these icy bodies, and it will make its way on a long elliptical path toward the inner solar system. So you can see here more or less the path that a comet like Halley's will take. At perihelion, its closest point to the sun, it's 0.6 astronomical units, closer than Venus. And then at its furthest point from the sun, aphelion, it's at about 35 astronomical units, or that's beyond the orbit of Neptune. So that's a short period comet like Halley's, which comes around every 76 years or so. Some of the long period comets, it takes thousands of years in a much more elliptical orbit than this. Hale-Bopp again, or I'm sorry, NEOWISE again, 6,800 years. There are some long period comets in the Oort cloud that have periods in excess of 2 million years. I mean, we may not even be around as a species if and when they return. So that's essentially where comets come from. They have two tails, a dust tail and an ion tail. The dust tail is the brilliant white tail that you see as a result of the solar radiation causing the dust particles to break off into a long tail. It can be anywhere from 1 million to 10 million kilometers in length. And then you have the ion tail, which is this pale blue tail caused by the ionized atoms and molecules, particularly the CO plus molecule. And that can be anywhere up to 100 million kilometers in length. A comet like NEOWISE, some of the photographs you'll see, both tails were visible and easily photographed by some of our members. Now, comets are rare, fleeting, and visually appealing. And because they come around so infrequently, we thought we'd take a few minutes to discuss some of your most memorable comet experiences.
We went to Florida expressly for the purpose to see Halley's Comet. My wife, my son, 16 years old, and I were staying near the park and got up at 3 a.m. to go into the Everglades National Park to view the comet. It was quite visible because of the very dark skies. The thing I remember most, other than viewing the comet, was that as soon as we got out of the car, we were swarmed with mosquitoes. Almost instantly, we were bitten in great numbers. In spite of this, we stayed outside for a few minutes to take some photos and view the comet. After the viewing, we quickly went back to the hotel and showered. Merrill Miller. And of course, Halley's Comet is probably the most famous in history. Most of us know the story. It was Edmund Halley who convinced Isaac Newton to publish his universal laws of gravitation and motion in Principia Mathematica. Edmund Halley actually paid for the publication out of his own pocket. Well, in 1705, he used Newton's laws to compute the orbit of the Great Comet of 1682 and figured out that it had the same orbit as comets seen in the years 1531 and 1607. So Edmund Halley made a bold prediction that it would return again in 1758. Pretty bold considering that it was years into the future and turns out 12 years after his death. But sure enough, Christmas Day, 1758, the comet reappeared, and that's how we got Halley's Comet. And it's been seen every 76 years or so, going back to 240 BC. It was actually put into the Bayeux Tapestry, which was commemorating the Norman conquest of England in 1066 by William the Conqueror. It wouldn't be for another 900 years until an army would successfully cross the English Channel from either England to France or France to England. Turns out the D-Day invasions in 1944 was the next time that this feat was accomplished. Here you can see a picture of Halley's Comet in 1910 and then again in 1986. And of course, I remember very vividly seeing it in 1986 and hearing on the news an 88-year-old woman talking about seeing it twice and that it looked better in 1910 than it did in 1986. When I was a kid in the 60s, I learned about it, Halley's Comet. I was impressed with the great photos of it in the Mark Twain story. But I was also impressed that Earth had passed through its tail in 1910. Yikes! So I actually worried for years that it might hit us the next time it came around. Eventually it came back in 1986 and was much further away from us than in 1910. I'm not sure when I learned that we were not expected to be at risk in 86, but I eventually did. It has always been a prime example of how people can waste their time and energy worrying about something that may seem inevitable for years and that doesn't even come close to happening. Joanne Rhodes. So kind of a funny story. In 1910, scientists used the new science of spectroscopy to analyze the tail of Halley's Comet, and they discovered that there was an element called cyanogen, when combined with hydrogen, makes hydrogen cyanide, which is a deadly poisonous gas. So when Earth passed through the tail that year, companies made a killing, no pun intended, selling people gas masks, umbrellas, and comet pills. So it just goes to show you that, of course, nothing ever came of it, but it just goes to show you that a sucker is born every minute, and that if you're really on your game in business, you can make a profit by selling fear. I would have to say my favorite comet was Kohoutek in 1973. I had a job out near the airport that started at 5:30 a.m. Kohoutek was a vertical spike just above the horizon, stretching for almost 15 degrees at its best. My next favorite was Hale-Bopp. I doubt I have to describe that magnificent sight and the duration of the time it was observable. Dan Fundo. I remember seeing Hale-Bopp with my kids. I had a powerful pair of binoculars and we could even see the tail wavering a bit behind it. I was surprised we could see that much detail with the binoculars. Jeff King. And then this is a snapshot of the article in the Meteorite from this past month, August 2020. So I would really encourage you to read it. It's an excellent survey of great comets over the last 60 years or so. This is one I didn't know about, Akiyaseki in 1965. This was the most spectacular comet of the 20th century and one of the greatest of all time. It was a sun grazer and reached magnitude -10 right after perihelion. It was easily visible right next to the sun all day long. All you had to do was block out the sun with your hand or stand in the shadow of a building. It had extremely long multiple tails after perihelion, which could be seen rising in the pre-dawn sky before the bright nucleus was visible. I would say nuclei as it broke into 2 or 3 pieces when it passed less than 750,000 miles from the center of the sun. And again, this one won't return for another 1,000 years, so must have been a spectacular sight. Wish I'd seen it, again, before my time. Check out this article in the August Meteorite. And that leads us to NEOWISE. Here you can see a shot from Olive Branch, Mississippi by Brent Ellis. This is kind of what it looked like in the early evening sky. And here you can see it up close. The coma of this comet had a very distinct greenish blue color in the evening sky. It was more gold in the morning, but in the early evening sky, it did look kind of like this. The coma did. Here's another shot from Jeff Brown, again in the evening sky. Don Farge took this picture. These are all on our Facebook page, by the way. And then Nancy took these pictures on consecutive nights around July 18, 19, somewhere in there, I believe from Colorado. But really cool shot. One night is overcast, another night it's clear, and you can see it from her backyard. So really neat shot. And then, of course, Brian took a trip to the Ozarks, 3-day weekend, and he took several spectacular shots of NEOWISE from the Ozarks. Here you can see the dust tail and the ion tail. Here you can see it in the early evening sky. A little overcast. He was battling clouds on some of these nights. But, yeah, you can see it right after sunset, right above the treetops in the Ozarks. Another great shot here. You can see the ion tail to the left, dust tail to the right. So pretty neat shot there. And then here you can see another shot. Those of you who saw it at Burton's or in the mid-July sky probably remember those 2 stars, very distinct, right next to the coma. The tail of this comet was very long. If you had binoculars, were a great way to view this comet. So I actually viewed it through binoculars and then through the eyepiece of my telescope, 31 millimeter Nagler, and it looked much better in binoculars than it did in a telescope. So looked great in a telescope too. And here's another shot of Comet NEOWISE. NEOWISE was much more impressive from Bortle 2 skies. I observed it from the Ozarks, and the owners of the ranch I was camping at pulled up to my observing site in their car, got out, and immediately pointed out the comet themselves. In the eyepiece, it was very bright, tail and all, and the ion tail was visible.
Now, Brian Hancock had the opportunity to sit down and interview Wally Pacholka. Wally is an accountant turned astrophotographer, and he's taken some incredible images, not only of comets, but other deep sky objects over the years. Here's Brian Hancock.
Hello, I'm Brian Hancock with the Memphis Astronomical Society. On July 23rd, we celebrated the 25th anniversary of the discovery of the Great Comet Hale-Bopp. And it was quite the celebration this year because we were visited in July by the Comet NEOWISE. NEOWISE was the best comet that the Northern Hemisphere has seen since, well, Hale-Bopp. And although its apparition cannot truly be compared to that of Hale-Bopp, it did put on quite a show, and it was visible, tail and all, from a good dark location. Hale-Bopp went on to become the Great Comet of 1997. In fact, it was so spectacular that year that Time magazine decided that they needed a Hale-Bopp Picture of the Year. I'm pleased to tell you that the gentleman who took that award-winning photograph is our guest today, Mr. Wally Pacholka. Mr. Pacholka's photographs have appeared in numerous worldwide publications, including Time magazine, Life magazine, Encyclopedia Britannica, and National Geographic. He has a whopping 47 astronomy pictures of the day. That's amazing. And on top of all of that, Mr. Pacholka lends his voice to protecting our dark skies in America. He has helped a total of 9 parks achieve their dark sky certification. So we at Memphis Astronomical Society are pleased that Mr. Pacholka has agreed to sit down with us virtually and talk about his Hale-Bopp pics, his NEOWISE pics, and he even gives us a few photography tips along the way. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest, Mr. Wally Pacholka. Okay, Mr. Wally Pacholka, welcome to the Memphis Astronomical Society August meeting. It's an honor to have you here.
Well, thank you, Brian. It's an honor for me to be here and join you guys.
Great. Before we really dive into your Hale-Bopp and NEOWISE pictures, I wanted to give you a chance to explain what motivates you in photography. When I was doing some research, I read a wonderful story online about when you were 9 years old, and I just wondered if you could share that with us.
My memory is going on me since I'm 71, but yeah, it was, I think it was when I was 9, but anyhow, I had a paper out when I was real young. I think I was actually a young teenager, but the age doesn't matter. But since I was living outside a small town in Quebec, Canada, I happened to have a morning paper out and an evening paper out. And of course, in the wintertime, it's dark in the morning and in the evening. And so that's when I just fell in love with the night sky. And I was just so thrilled when I saw Venus. And there was something different in the sky. Venus being very bright in the evening sky. And I just knew, wow, that had to be a planet. And my parents or teachers didn't know really anything about the night sky, but I just really was fascinated with it. My older brother called me a nut because I was always going out, looking at the stars. Us boys lived basically in the attic, and there was a fire escape up there. So I would go out the fire escape and just lay on the roof looking at the stars every night. And I can't tell you how many times my dad came out there and said, "Wally, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, Dad, I just love looking at the stars."
Right.
And so something I guess you would say God just instilled in me. I lived in a pristine area, and it was very natural for me to enjoy the night sky.
That's wonderful. And so that's why you bought your first camera, correct? So that you could show them what you were seeing.
Yes. Actually, like I mentioned, no one seemed like had any interest in the sky, and I was just fascinated with it. So with my paper out money, I ended up getting a 35 millimeter camera and started taking pictures. And I always, my style has always been the landscape. I like to give people the context of what they're looking at.
Right.
So I always included I took a picture like of Orion over the forest, and I really wanted other people to understand that there's real beauty out there in the night sky.
You were doing some photography, and some Cub Scouts had a fire built, and it was illuminating the landscape. And you said, "Wow, that photograph turned out really well. I need to do that again. I need to replicate that."
Yes, that was in 1996 when I was in Joshua Tree looking at and photographing Comet Hale-Bopp, which was the Great Comet. A Great Comet the year prior to Hale-Bopp, as you may know, and I was out there and just photographing the comet like normal. And including the landscape, but in this case, the Cub Scouts fire lit up the landscape, so it made the landscape a little more dramatic.
Right.
And so I guess I was doing landscape photography before then, but that experience with the Cub Scouts lighting up the landscape with their fire and encouraged me to, from then on, to use a flashlight at times, lighting up the foreground.
Well, let's dive right in. I know everyone wants to see the pics, and let's start off with the Hale-Bopp pics. So this Hale-Bopp, it's just a wonderful juxtaposition of the comet above the Joshua Tree.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I made 13 trips out to Joshua Tree. Joshua Tree was my dark sky place. I live in Long Beach, California, right next to south of Los Angeles. And so my dark sky place now is Joshua Tree National Park, which is basically a 3-hour drive from Long Beach. But when I got the news that Hale-Bopp was coming, starting in January '97, I started making trips out to Joshua Tree. And this image here was taken March 28th, when the end of March and early April was when the Hale-Bopp was just really at its peak.
Right.
And I remember taking this image and going to the Long Beach Press Telegram, our local newspaper, and I had hundreds of images of the comet. But I remember the photo editor manager there just coming across this image, and he said, "Wow, we want to use this one." So they used it in local paper, and then he sent it off to the Associated Press, and that went all very, very wide distribution worldwide. So that's one of my favorite images also. It also made Time magazine. I have another image that made Time magazine, but this made the weekly Time magazine copy.
That's excellent. We'll go to the second Hale-Bopp image.
This was taken again the time of Hale-Bopp's close approach. I'm tracking this on a tripod. Usually my style is this camera and on a tripod, but I'm tracking this on, on my telescope. I had a 2.4-inch Tasco telescope that I had since I bought from my paper route days in Canada. But this is, I think it was a couple of minute exposure. You could tell with the shadow on the rock. I call this hand rock. This hand rock that's
Right.
That looks like the hand of Earth is reaching up to make contact with the comet.
Right.
But in the time exposure here, 2-minute time exposure, the sky is setting, so that created the shadow around the rock there.
Oh, okay. When I see this photo, I really can't help but think of the Sistine Chapel, the creation of Adam. It's got some similar motifs with that. Yeah, it's really wonderful.
It's interesting. NASA has a site, you can still look at it today, on the Comet Hale-Bopp, and they have posted 5,100 images from around the world that people took, and they just submitted them to NASA, and NASA is basically hosting this website on Comet Hale-Bopp. This particular image, NASA happens to have as the header of that
Right.
web page. So that was a great honor.
Right, and rightfully so.
Thank you. And now this, of course, is one of my favorite images of the comet. This is again over Joshua Tree. Joshua Tree National Park not only has many Joshua trees, but it also it's a rock climber's paradise, a rock scrambler's paradise. So these are a part of the rock formations in Joshua Tree National Park. And this image was taken actually April 4th. And this actually made Time magazine Picture of the Year that year. And just to clarify what Picture of the Year means, in other words, at the end of each year, Time magazine, also Life magazine, but anyway, Time magazine publishes an edition of world events that year. And of course, Hale-Bopp was a world event.
Right.
And just like that year, 1997, like for instance, Princess Diana died and Mother Teresa died. So in the annual edition, they had a picture of iconic picture of Mother Teresa, also iconic picture of Diana. And for Hale-Bopp, they happened to pick this particular image. I think one reason I was published in so many places is it's just because of the style of photography. In other words, when Hale-Bopp came around, all the astronomers out there went out and bought the biggest telescope they could afford so they could zoom in on the comet.
Right.
All the photographers that were interested in taking a picture of the comet, they went out and bought the biggest lens they could afford so they could zoom in on the comet.
Right.
But I just kept with my normal style of the landscape. In other words, the man in the street view of the comet. And so that's what the magazines and these publishing companies wanted. They wanted something that the everyday person can identify with. And that's basically the landscape style of astrophotography.
Now, I did tell you before what I really love about your photography. If you've tried to do any photography at all, it's a very fine line between making sure you have enough contrast and enough color, but not crossing that line to where it's oversaturated or the contrast starts creating noise. And,
yes.
And you always have that perfect balance.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, it goes back to my roots, so to speak. When I first got my first camera, my intent was to show family and friends what I was looking at. And because I really enjoyed the night sky. I thought I've always just been fascinated with, God's creation every day. The sun rises, the moon rises,
Right.
but not only sun and moon, but the Venus and Orion rises, Orion sets. It's a continuous show before us, and I think it's just fascinating. And so I want to basically showcase some of that beauty to others. So I love just going out capturing these events that are happening basically nightly. Comets don't happen nightly, but there's always Orion rising, Orion setting.
Right.
There's always something going on out there that's of interest.
We move on to discuss Mr. Pacholka's NEOWISE photos. He took 2 trips to photograph NEOWISE. The first trip to photograph its morning apparition, and the second trip to photograph its evening apparition. We'll discuss 3 photos from each trip. We pick up the discussion talking about his photograph of NEOWISE from Death Valley and the visibility of NEOWISE's ion tail during its morning apparition.
Higher elevations, as you'll see here in some of the other pictures, the ion tail really pops at high elevation.
Well, I really like this picture because it reminds me of the first postcard I saw of yours because we're back at a 20 mule wagon.
That's what I like to capture. When people see the 20 mule wagon, they know it's Death Valley.
Right.
So I try to capture something iconic on the land and something interesting in the sky, in this case, the comet.
How long of an exposure is this?
Okay, with an 85 millimeter lens, I was limited to, I think, 6 seconds, or else I would start getting the streaking.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so 6 seconds, and it was wide open at I believe it was at f2. Using a Nikon lens. I happen to use a Nikon D750 camera right now. It's a relatively older camera. It's 6-7 years old.
Right.
My camera before that was the Canon 6D. I used that for many years, probably about 8 years.
So what made you make the switch from Canon to Nikon?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. The Nikon camera, the D750, shows a little bit less noise than the Canon 6D. The Canon 6D is an excellent night sky camera, but the Nikon just has a little bit of an edge on the noise factor.
Okay. Okay, great.
Less noise. Yeah.
Now this is a real gem.
Thank you.
Thor's Hammer at Bryce Canyon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Bryce Canyon.
Right.
It's a wonderful place. They have so many hiking trails where you hike down into the canyons, and it's always it's a great place to look up at the sky and then see all these red rock hoodoos, very prominent. And one of those hoodoos, very famous, is Thor's Hammer, pictured here, and the Temple of Osiris next to it. I was very surprised there was no one down there when I went there in the morning. Usually it's a very crowded place.
Right.
Almost anywhere I go nowadays, as you probably know, there are night photographers doing landscape, astrophotography, absolutely everywhere I go. On this NEOWISE first trip, there was nobody. Well, of course, it was 105 degrees in Joshua Tree and 117 degrees in Death Valley, so you wouldn't expect too many people.
Right.
But I was expecting people here at Bryce Canyon, and I didn't run into anybody. I thought the trail would be crowded because Thor's Hammer is a very famous location. And I thought the trail would be crowded with night sky people taking pictures of the comet, but I was fortunately the only guy there. A rare occurrence nowadays.
Right. Is this with the 85 millimeter lens and just a single exposure?
That trip, all I had with me was the 85 millimeter and my 24, but I shot to get close-ups, to get the comet to a decent size. I used only the 85, I believe, this trip. And yeah, the exposure was I think 5 or 6 seconds,
Okay.
wide open at f2.
Right. Wonderful.
This is Brian Head,
Yeah.
which is right next to Cedar Breaks National Park. And Brian Head is a ski resort. It's in the Brian Head. I was at Brian Head Summit here. I think it's 11,000 feet. So the eye and tail looks pretty good here. That is a gorgeous morning.
Do you pick out your location during the day and then come back later at night, or do you just start hiking, find a spot and shoot?
So I try to give some thought before I go, and of course I choose the landscape based on what's of interest in the sky. And of course, in this case, the comet was my target in the sky, and so the target was in the morning. Here was in the northeast. So I generally pick locations that have a good northeast view. Of course, here I'm on a mountaintop, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I do try to pick location based on what I'm shooting in the sky. And that's not always easy to do. Generally, when I do my general national park photography, I scout out again, looking at the target in the sky, like the Milky Way or whatever it is, and then try to find landscape that will fit beneath that. And I travel, basically travel there during the day and then scout out, do some hiking at night to scout out the land, so to speak, and then come back or stay there at night to do the night shooting.
And now we're on the second trip. And I got to tell you, Mr. Pacholka, I think this one is it for me. It looks like you used the fog filter for the lens.
Actually, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to use a standard photographic star filter to emphasize the constellations. Like when you go to a dark location, as you know, the constellations often get lost in the multitude of stars. So one gimmick I do use is I used to use a photographic star filter, which would basically emphasize the brighter stars, like the Big Dipper stands out. And then I know several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I switched to a soft focus filter that basically does the same thing. But you don't end up with this big star. Like for instance, if you use the star filter with Jupiter, it's just too big.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here I'm using a soft focus filter. I happen to get this one from, I think it was Kenko. But in any case, as you can see, it makes the stars of the Dipper stand out. Also, you can see the colors of the stars a little better. Like you can see there's a lot of blue stars in the Dipper. This is probably my favorite picture of the trip, and certainly the most difficult to get. And as I planned for this trip, the one reason I went to the White Mountains, well, actually two reasons. One is that they're 10,000 feet high, so I knew the comet would have a good ion tail. But the things of interest in the White Mountains, by the way, are just east of Bishop, California.
Right.
And the Mammoth Mountain is kind of to the west of Bishop. But in any case, the White Mountains are 10,000 feet. And the thing of interest there is the ancient bristlecone forest, where they have these ancient trees that are 4,000 to 5,000 years old. And so my target was to, for the evening, was to find one of these trees that, of course, was positioned in the northwest. As I was driving there, I was hoping I could find one of these trees in that position. And luckily, as I was driving up there, it was maybe an hour before sunset, I spotted this tree way up on the ledge, and I said, "Okay, this looks like a great target. It's going to be in the northwest." But it was kind of a hike to get to, and also the terrain was not even, and also it was sliding rocks, cut rock. That was not the easiest thing to place a tripod on, but anyhow, it worked out.
And is this also with a 85 millimeter lens?
This is actually with a 135 millimeter lens. I actually got a little bit longer lens for the second trip.
Gotcha. Yeah, because you could start to see some of the striations and the dust tail. I mean, it's got a really nice detailed. You can still see the green coma of NEOWISE. It's really excellent.
Well, thank you.
And finally, we have Sand Harbor on Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, Sand Harbor is a wonderful state park, and I've shot there before, and so this was my target location. And I feel very fortunate to have gotten this shot, because, matter of fact, for the whole trip, I was fortunate each evening and morning in that it was clear. And except here at Lake Tahoe at Sand Harbor, it was really cloudy with a few clearings, but the comet was covered most of the evening. And then I'm not sure, I think this was around 11 o'clock, where the clouds, so to speak, parted and showed the comet. And I was fortunate enough to just grab a shot, or several shots with the comet in view. So I'm really happy I got this shot, and thankful.
Yeah, well, I mean, the clouds just add a dramatic effect. You know,
they do, yeah.
And again, just a wonderful shot. Mr. Pacholka, I want to thank you for going through those pics with us. I want to ask you, do you have any advice for the aspiring young astrophotographer?
Well, yeah, I would like to say just keep it simple. I know a lot of guys, when they get interested in astrophotography or astronomy, they often go out and buy, relatively expensive equipment, and then they continually do so. It seems like a never-ending process.
Okay. That sounds like me. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. But my equipment is relatively simple. Just a camera and a tripod, and without tracking or telescope, and so that alone makes it relatively cheap. The camera is $2,000 and the lens $1,000 or something like that. But once you invest that, you're done.
Right.
And I used my 6D camera for I think 10 years, and the current camera I have is 2 years old for me. It's probably a 6, 7 year old camera. But you don't need to go out and be buying equipment every year. So I say keep it simple. Landscape astrophotography is fun to do. You're capturing beautiful scenery. My target's landscape, of course, is the national parks, and that's actually my business the last 23 years, basically since Hale-Bopp, since a lot of my photos were published. That basically kicked off my self-employment business, and I've been very fortunate to be an amateur astronomer that has actually made a living slowly from my astrophotography, and I just basically go out to beautiful places, our national parks, and photograph the skies at night, and then I make souvenir products like bookmarks and magnets and note cards, sometimes photos on T-shirts that I sell at wholesale to the gift shops, and they sell at retail. So that's my main business. Before that, I was a boring accountant, was county manager and controller of a number of fairly high-profile companies, like a division of Nissan, North America, and then also General Dynamics is one of the few companies I work for. But I enjoy my four-corner office now of the national parks. It's much more enjoyable. Rather than counting money for some other people, I have a chance to showcase God's creation.
Right.
And I've been very, very fortunate to do what I love.
Mr. Pacholka, there's a line from a poem by William Wordsworth that reminds me of you. The one line says, "The child is father of the man." And I think about that when you talk about your childhood passion and what you're doing now, that all of those dreams and those passions and that interest from your childhood has defined what you are now.
Well, thank you. I'm going to end on a quote here myself that many of you probably seen the movie Chariots of Fire.
Yes.
And where the famous Olympian runner, Eric Liddell, he said that he said, God made me to run. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. And so I love that quote, and I feel that God has had a purpose in giving me an interest in the night sky and sharing it with others, and I do enjoy that purpose and sharing the night sky. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to do that again here.
Well, the pleasure is all ours, I guarantee you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you,
Mr. Pacholka. Okay, clear skies.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, in this segment, we're going to review a tool called Telescopius. And Telescopius is a free online astrophotography planning tool developed by Sebastian Garcia. And we are privileged today to have Sebastian here to talk about the tool. Sebastian, by trade, is a professional programmer, and he got into astronomy about 10 years ago and kind of married the two and worked on this tool for over a decade. And it is the most advanced astrophotography planning tool that I've ever seen, and it's really essential. Not, when you start doing your astrophotography and you look for deep sky images, especially when you get past the usual suspects, the Messier stuff, and you want to get into more advanced stuff, this is a great tool. So, Sebastian, welcome.
Thank you.
How are things in Buenos Aires, Argentina?
It's actually surprisingly hot. It's winter here, but We are, yeah, we are having really nice weather right now.
Good.
Cloudy, of course.
Yeah.
But what?
It's funny
What can
because
you do?
July is the middle of your winter. It's the middle of our summer. So it's kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I'm going to
Okay.
turn it over to you, Sebastian. Show us Telescopius. It's a great tool. And we've got Keith on, one of our astrophotographers who actually uses the tool. So I'll just let you guys take it from here.
Okay. Thank you guys for having me here. I'm going to show you around Telescopius a bit and tell you a bit of its history. Let me share my screen very quickly. There we are. So basically, 10 years ago, I wanted to find targets to see an image with my new telescope, and I couldn't find anything that would show me a list of targets that I could narrow down by the search criteria I wanted. I found that the Saguaro Astronomy Club had a database of over 10,000 objects, and I thought it would be a great idea to create an online tool to be able to filter, to narrow them down. And so the Deep Sky Objects browser was born 10 years ago. And this was the very first screen of Telescopius. It was called Deep Sky Objects Browser back then. And it had only one feature that was actually, well, browsing through Deep Sky Objects by different criteria. And this was the whole site, actually. You would select your search options here and get results. So since then, the site grew quite a lot. Now you not only can you search for targets for deep sky objects, but also comets, asteroids, and planets. You can create observing lists. You have nice altitude charts that I find quite interesting. One of the most interesting tools is the telescope framing simulator and mosaic planner. Be showing in a bit. And we also have astronomy calculators, an events calendar, a weather forecast, and so on. So let me go right to the site now and show you what the homepage looks like. As with any astronomy related software, planning or planetarium software, the first thing you want to do is make sure you have your observatory settings right, and that's what you have at the top left. You set your location and the date and your observing date, and then the whole site will adapt to your location and your observing date. You have this nice little row here you can pin down and play with the dates if you want to check the data for the next week or the next month. You can easily change the date, and as you can see, the data on the site is updated automatically. Let me go back to today. And the left-hand side, you have like a summary of the night. You have the moon phase, the moonrise and the moonset, how the light during your day would look like, how night you will have. You can mouse over here and see approximately the hours you will have available for your session. And some quick weather information here and a weekly forecast as well. But then to the planning features of the site, the first thing you can see on the homepage is a quick random selection of suggested targets for your location and tonight. The homepage is about tonight. So you get just 3 different suggestions for each kind of deep sky object here. And so you can see the object name, the magnitude, the size, the constellation, and the rise time, the transit, and the set time. And these altitude charts you can see here, you can mouse over and find out the exact altitude for each one of these objects throughout the night as you move your mouse. If you want to get more advanced suggestions, that's usually what everyone does. You can go to targets, deep sky. You can also check the solar system and all the planets and comets and asteroids, but they work pretty much the same as deep sky. You go to deep sky and you can search, you can tweak these search parameters to get literally thousands of results. Let me reset the filters. And you can see I get almost 7,000 objects. Telescopius has currently about 16,000 objects in the database. And the reason you are seeing this much only is because of the search parameters and my location. Of course, I can see objects. Since I'm in Argentina, I'm quite south, I can see the objects with high declination. So that together with the search parameters, you get fewer objects. But still, nearly 7,000 objects, it's quite a lot. So what you can do is, for example, say, I want to image something tonight from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. And I want to see objects staying at least 45 degrees up in the sky for at least 3 hours, because I want to get enough subs during those 3 hours. And I want the object to be above 45 degrees for the whole 3 hours during this time window. And just by setting that, we got the results narrowed down to less than 2,000. And well, we have full moon today, so I will ask the objects to be far away from the moon, at least 60 degrees away from the moon. And oh, we got only 9 objects. And this way you have a lot of different filters here. You can filter by object type as well, upper magnitude, size, etc. And the reason I got so few results this time is because, well, we have full moon, and during full moon it's hard to get decent objects staying high in the sky for a lot of time and away from the moon during all that time. If I change the date, let's see, you can see if you open the date picker, you can see conveniently the moon phases in the calendar. So you can pick a nice night, for example, this one, new moon, August 18th. And you can see we went from 9 objects to 1,400 objects. So we can continue filtering. We can, for example, select only galaxies. And we can select galaxies at least a couple of minutes, 10 minutes wide. And there you are. And you have some decent targets that qualify for your search parameters. One nice thing about this view is that all these altitude charts aligned vertically, so it's quite easy to see how they all behave during the night. You can see, for example, the small Magellanic Cloud transits here around 4 a.m., while Galaxy NGC 6744 transits at 10 p.m., around 10 p.m. So by looking at these charts, you can easily see which kind of targets are better suited for what you're going to do. And this green line here is actually the minimum altitude you set on the search parameters. So it's also easy to see when the objects rise and set on this, let's say, like virtual horizon you set. From this screen or any other screen having this kind of layout, you can add objects to your observing list. Of course, I'm not logged in right now, so let me log in so I can show you this feature. You can log in with just one click using your Google or Facebook account, as you saw. And using this widget, you can add objects to your observing lists. I have two observing lists here, one to image and one to see with my binoculars while I'm imaging. And you can add them with just one click. And if you notice you want to add some to your other list, you just click on the other list, and it becomes the one-click default as well. Okay, so you can also, of course, go to each one of these objects and see more advanced information. You have the altitude charts, as you saw before, but you also have a yearly altitude chart. And let's say you're interested in Sculpture Galaxy, and you notice it transits at 4 a.m. and maybe you want to image this galaxy when it transits, let's say at 1 a.m. So you can image it throughout your whole night. So you can go to the yearly chart and check when this object, this galaxy, will transit at 1 a.m., your location. And here you can see that the best time of the year to see this galaxy transit from your location at 1 a.m. is October the 1st. That's an easy way to see when each object will be at the sweet spot for your location. You can also click yearly reminder here, and you'll get one email a year, just one email per year, per object, telling you, hey, this object is now at the sweet spot for your location. So if I leave this turned on, a few days before October the 1st, I will get an email reminding me this object is a good option for my location. Here you can also, I won't go into much details about the different integrations Telescopius has, but I want to mention them at least. One is here. You can link Telescopius to Stellarium. So if you click this button, Stellarium will focus this object. This is useful if you use Stellarium for example, to control your telescope. In here, you have to enter the configuration, and you have a quick guide. But again, I don't want to go into much detail right now. We can discuss that later if needed. And here you have the telescope simulator, which I will go into more detail in a bit. Just let me reset a couple of the settings, and I will show you in a bit. First, let me go first to the observing list, so I can show you how they work. Here you have the two observing lists I mentioned. And in here, well, you can rename, clear the list, delete it, and you can manage your list, adding or removing objects. Well, actually, from here, you can only remove. You can sort your list by different criteria. One of the most popular sorting is transit. So you first get the ones transiting right after sunset, and you go then through the night watching the rest of the objects. You can download your observing lists as CSV file, so you can have it offline if you want and do whatever you want. For example, APT has a nice integration with this. You can import your list right into APT. And Sequence Generator Pro too can import the lists, but in this case, for Sequence Generator Pro, you just copy the URL and import it there. Again, I won't go into much details about these integrations, but at least I wanted you to know that they are there in case you want to play with them. Okay, so let me show you a bit the telescope simulator. First, I showed you that in these object pages, for example, the Lagoon Nebula page, you have the telescope simulator centered on the Lagoon Nebula. But you can also access the telescope simulator in the standalone mode here in Toolbox, where you can switch from object to object. So let me check here. Okay. So you can, by default, when you enter the telescope simulator, you see the Andromeda Galaxy, but you can change it whatever you want. Whatever coordinates in the sky you want, you can drag it. And this is actually a framing simulator, right? It's not about magnitude. So this is not how you will see objects through your eyepieces, but it's meant to show you how you would frame objects using your telescope and your camera, or using your eyes or your binoculars. Let me refresh this. So in this case, I have the default selection of 400 millimeters focal length, and in here you can see my lenses and my telescope. You can switch between quite easily by clicking them, and as you can see, the focal length and aperture updates. You can also enable or disable Barlow or reducer, focal reducer. And you can also change your cameras. And basically, the telescope simulator will show you what your framing would look like using your setup. You can change the angle of your camera, for example, like this. So we get the Andromeda Galaxy in the diagonal, so we get more of it. And we also have a nice mosaic planner here. I like this quite a lot. You can, let's say you want to image a larger part of the sky. So you can set, for example, a mosaic of 2 by 2 with a 20% overlap. And there you can see how that would look like when you stitch the paints together. So again, maybe I want to do this and have it diagonally. And you get the list of each one of the paints coordinates here with the correct position angle for each one of the paints, so everything lines up nicely. Let me put this back here. This is actually a new feature because as you move, let me move to a more extreme declination so I can show you what happens if you leave your camera with the same position angle in each one of the coordinates. As you move towards more extreme declinations, they kind of rotate a bit because they are pointing north. I mean that they have actually the same position angle right now, that's 0. They are pointing to the north, and as we move towards the celestial poles, you can see they point north. So to get a nice mosaic, you have this option to rotate the panes to preserve alignment, and there you are. And you get the position angle for each one of your panes. So you end up with a nice mosaic. You have other interesting features here. You can switch the background imagery if you want to see blue or red only. You can see hydrogen alpha. Not all of these surveys are complete. Not all of them have the full sky, but you can try and see if you get what you need in the zone you want. You can also play. Let me go back to Lagoon Nebula, and you can also play with the brightness, so you can discover subtle features in the sky. You can play with the contrast any way you want. And this is pretty much it about the astrophotography section. Using your equipment, you can also check how an eyepiece would work on your telescope. You can switch your eyepiece here. And also using binoculars. It's very useful for visual astronomy. And we also have our imaging partners, sponsors, who have a really nice selection of telescopes. Let me go back to, let me move from here. It's so it's so white. These imaging partners rent, I'm sure most of you know them, at least some of them. They rent their telescopes so you can use them from your home, from your computer. You rent time from these great telescopes, and so you can access their list of telescopes here. It's worth checking them out. Okay, so we have other stuff as well, like calculators. You can calculate a lot of stuff here. I won't go into one by one. I invite you to check them out. Just the first one here, for example, if you enter your telescope aperture, you can see different limits to your telescope, the maximum magnification, visual and photographic limiting magnitudes, and resolving power of your telescope, depending on two different formulas. And last but not least, we have decent gallery. I like this quite a lot of astrophotography work all around the world. On 58,000 pictures now of the most diverse targets, as you can see. This is pretty much like a social network of astrophotography. You can check the astrophotography of other users, see them full screen. As you can see, they are plate solved automatically. We can upload revisions. You can enter the equipment you use and different acquisition data, data about the subs, and enter comments. And like, of course, add to favorites. You can also search all this extensive gallery. searching by objects. One of the nicest is searching for animated pictures. So you get the Sun, Jupiter. Here we can see some comets, eclipses, you name it. Oh, nice clouds. So you can also find pictures using telescopes or lenses similar to yours, and also filter by camera or integration time. We also have, I didn't mention the night mode. I'm pretty sure most of you already have some kind of red screen for this, but in case you don't, there you are. And one more thing I'd like to mention about the site is that it's actually quite responsive. For those who don't know that term, responsive in web development means that the content adapts nicely to different screen sizes. I'm currently on a 15-inch notebook, so I can show you this on a larger screen, but it should work fine. I can show you how it adapts as I share in the screen. And this is, so you can use it. Let me show you on a phone. For example, an iPhone, even an old one. You can use the site just the same, pretty much like if it were an app. You even can use the telescope simulator on your phone. Of course, that's more difficult because when you try to change the settings of the different panels will block the view, but there are some nice features here. For example, if you try to switch the position angle, it kind of goes transparent, so you can see what you're doing, even on your phone. So I believe that's pretty much it regarding the biggest features. I'm not sure if you guys have some question.
Hey, Sebastian, thanks a lot for that incredible demonstration. I do have some questions. I know Keith does too, but I'll go ahead and fire first if you don't mind. First of all, you actually answered one of my questions. It was whether this tool is what it would look like on different platforms, a phone or an iPad. And I'm sure a lot of observers in the field are going to probably use an iPad, not necessarily have a laptop there. So that was an excellent part of the demonstration. Here's my question though. Let's say hypothetically that I want to plan a session months in advance, and let's say I want to shoot a target. Let's say M42. It's the Orion Nebula, of course. It's not out this time of year. So if I wanted to image M42, the Orion Nebula, and I wanted to select a time of year that would be the best time to do that from where I am, how would you do that in Telescopius?
Okay, if you have a specific target in mind, you just go here to go to object. For example, well, we have M42 as an example. It's but I just go to M42. And if I got your question right, can check here the best time of the year for your on the altitude block. You can check the yearly chart, so you can see when it will be transiting and the specific hour you want. It's not so much about checking each one of the seasons or the months to see what's better the best time of the year for this object, but instead you select the time you want the transit to happen. And it's usually the best time of year. It's when the object transits right at midnight, right? And that's usually around 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. So you just come here and select the 1 a.m. and you can see it's best seen at 1 a.m. on December 13th, for my location at least.
So 1 a.m. December 13 would be the best time for your location to image M42.
At 1 a.m.
At 1 a.m. Does it take into account the phases of the moon?
No, this chart, no, it doesn't. No.
Okay.
So, but you can, we can do this easily. When we see here December the 13th, we can change the date here on the date picker. Let's go to December. Oh, okay. It's new moon.
Oh, new moon.
New moon.
Love it.
Okay, but you can check here if it wasn't, and just select a different day. It's just 1 or 2 weeks away usually, so that's fine.
Cool. Now, Sebastian, I got another question. Keith, if you got a question, just go ahead and interrupt me, but I got another one. First of all, you have over 7,000 objects in your database?
16,000 actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, 16. I apologize. Yeah. I undersold it a little bit. 16,000 objects in your database. That's incredible.
I'm planning to add more. It has all the NGC objects, all the IC objects, the whole Sharpless 2 catalog, and then we have cross denominations and incomplete catalogs. I'm trying to increase to grow the database little by little. Absolutely.
It's an iterative process, right? You're a programmer. You just keep, you just keep expanding.
That's right. That's right.
I had a question about the eyepiece section because you showed earlier what an object would look like through a specific eyepiece. How many eyepieces do you have in your database?
Oh, none.
Okay.
Actually, that's something you if you go to your profile, this my astrophotography profile, you can set your equipment here. And let me show you a different way to come here. If you go to the telescope simulator, you go to the eyepiece. Oh, this is an ugly bug I just found. It's too wide. Let me just refresh this and it fixes it. If you go to telescope simulator to either your astrophotography or eyepiece section, sorry, let me sign in again, because when I show you the mobile version, I had to enter the developer mode and it signed me out. This shouldn't happen to you. So when you go to the eyepiece section, you click the eyepiece and you see add remove.
Oh.
So you click there and you are taken to your equipment section where you can edit your telescopes and lenses, cameras, mounts, etc.
Cool.
This is also used on the pictures you upload. So when you upload any picture, you can edit the picture information and set which equipment you used for that picture.
Nice. So when you create an account, you can build out your own database, your own profile, what equipment you use, what images, of course, you took, and then what you use to take those images, what kind of camera, what kind of tripod, what kind of telescope, what kind of eyepieces, everything. You're basically building out your personal suite of equipment, images, whatever.
Exactly.
And your observing list.
And your observing list.
Your observing.
Yep. By the way, guys, just so you know, Zoom sent me a little link here that said that they were removing the 40-minute time limit on the Zoom call. So I'm told we have more time. So we may not be in such a time crunch. I guess they like me more than I thought. But anyway, just so you know.
Awesome.
Keith.
So yeah, Sebastian, my question, I'm
Sorry, guys. I'm running low on battery. Just give me 1 minute so I can plug my notebook in.
okay, no problem.
I got to do that too. My camera battery's getting low. I'll be right back.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
All right. Great. Jeremy's coming back too.
Yeah.
So
Sorry about
I
that.
am just absolutely fascinated with this tool. I got to tell you, I've used it for quite some time and did not know all of these other things that you've made available. And that's part of my question. We saw your original version, and now we see this version. And I guess my question is, how did you go from that one to this thing? I mean, did you get input from other astronomers or other imagers, or, I mean, how did you get that?
Yes, absolutely. I actually encourage users to let me know what they think, send me suggestions, send me bug reports. I can only guess what users would like to see on the site,
Sure.
the features they would like. But of course, each user, each astronomer has its own workflow, its own his own workflow, his own preferences, and sometimes some features escape me, and I don't even realize they would be a good idea, and they just write to me, and I like them, and I say, okay, thank you for the suggestion, and I do it. Of course, my to-do list is huge. I cannot do everything they suggest. I have tons of items of my own and ideas of my own. So I really have to prioritize. But please, if you use the site and think something can be improved, or you notice any issue at all, I ask you, please, guys, to contact me and tell me what you think. Your feedback is really valuable.
Absolutely. Hey, I got another question for you, really for both of you. It's kind of a hypothetical scenario, if you don't mind. So, Keith, you're planning your next RV trip to a dark sky site. Let's say it's sometime in September, hypothetically. You want to go mid-September, and you want to up your game in the world of astrophotography. I'm not sure what object you would select. Something that's not in the Messier catalog, something that's not on the immediate radar screen. You make the choice. Anyway, you're planning this trip. You want to select a handful of targets to image. Sebastian, what would be the best way for Keith to kind of plan if he wanted a handful of targets to go out and image and have it available so that he has a plan for when he gets there in, let's say, September 13, 14, whatever dates he's going?
Okay. So what you would do is, the best thing to do is to go to the targets menu, then deep sky. Make sure you have your date selected right here. Let's go to September. So here you can see September 13th. It's not new moon just yet, but the moon rises at 4:30 a.m. So it may be a good night. But well, yeah, you select whatever night you want. Let's pick this one. And so basically you can start by resetting the search parameters. I always forget to do that. And you just pick your filters as I showed before. So for example, let's say you will be the whole night out. so you can pick the astronomical night as the time window. You probably want to image stuff high in the sky, let's say at least 30 degrees up, if not more, for a couple of hours. Not very near the moon. And it goes pretty much with the preferences of what you are going to image. So maybe you're into galaxy clusters, and you have 44 galaxy clusters. It's actually, what I would suggest is to create an observing list for maybe for this specific trip, and add all the objects you want there. So you would use this search form, filtering but whatever you want, and create your observing list as I showed before. And afterwards, you can just download your list or print it or whatever you want. You can filter by magnitude, by size. Filtering by size is actually quite useful because there are many small galaxies and small objects that you probably don't want to image because they would be just a few pixels on your sensor. So this is a nice filter. So yeah, this is the way you would go to pick the objects you want.
Excellent. And kind of a follow-up to that, I'm a Dobsonian guy. I haven't got pulled into the world of astrophotography just yet. I've got a serious case of aperture fever. I like the bigger the mirror, the better.
Nice.
So again, if I'm planning a similar trip and I just want to hunt and find stuff through my telescope, I could use this tool also to build an objects list for a star party.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, in the apparent magnitude filter, when you open these drop downs, you can see some guides here to see what's the limit for your aperture. So this is just a rough guide, of course. This will depend on the optics, the quality of the optics, the quality of the sky, the user vision, if it's 20/20 or not, etc. But there you are. Here you have a rough guide to select for targets by magnitude, depending on your aperture. And as you can see here in this tip, if you are doing astrophotography, you can add 2.5 to this. So if you have a 10-inch telescope, for example, and you're doing astrophotography, you can get maybe to 16 or 17 magnitude. But there you go. This is a way to narrow this list down for observing purposes. Select your telescope diameter, your aperture, and that's it.
Excellent. And again, you can do the same thing for binoculars too. Well, one of our buddies has, a set of handheld, or not handheld, but the binoculars on a tripod. He likes wide field stuff, so he could do the same kind of thing.
Absolutely. Or you can just select naked eye, and you'll get only the brightest object. Here you see 1,500 objects. That's because I'm including all objects with unknown magnitudes. You can unselect this, and there you go. You have more reasonable amount of objects up to 7 magnitude.
Yep.
One other tip to organizing your night, especially if you are doing visual astronomy, is to sort the results by well, maybe not the results, but your observing list by transit time, because you will probably start
Mhm.
I don't have nice objects in this list right now. Okay, yes, this one. Because you probably start your night and you want to focus on the objects that are transiting right at the start of your night. In this case, the Lagoon Nebula would be the first one on your list, but it appears at the bottom because it sorts by transit time during your night. And the Lagoon Nebula is transiting right before your astronomical night begins, and that's why it's pushed down to the bottom. But at any rate, you can sort this and check out the first and the last objects to see which ones you pick first for your night, and then move in this order.
Excellent.
Yep. And Jeremy, as I probably mentioned to you and Sebastian earlier, one of the things that I find great is when I'm at home, I don't have a backyard. I have a side yard that faces to the north. So I have absolutely, where I set my telescope up, I have absolutely no view of the southern sky. So this kind of helps me to understand, well, what is actually available and when is it going to transit? Because remember, too, you might have to do a meridian flip during that time, too. And so if I'm looking at something, I might decide, well, let me just wait for a few minutes. That way I don't have to do a meridian flip. I can catch it really high and catch it going down. So it makes it so much easier to me than trying to go to Stellarium and looking at everything out there and trying to figure out, well, what do I want to image tonight? This helps me plan so that I don't waste a lot of time on an object just to realize, oh my gosh, I've only got it for 10 minutes, or 20 minutes before it falls without my view. So I think it's fantastic. Sebastian, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for having it. I just can't say enough about it, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I have one tip for your problem.
Yeah.
If you go to the search section, you can and you open the coordinates filter.
Uh-huh.
Let me first. Sorry. Let me reset the filters. You go to the coordinate section. First, let me show you. You're getting results here that you can read transit south, transit north, transit south, transit north. So you could first easily see which ones actually transit north or south of your location. So you can ignore those you don't want. But there's an easier way to do this, to get rid of all the southern or northern objects from your location. And that's filtering by declination. You can read that here in the tips section.
Yep.
So to see objects transiting north, use your latitude as minimum declination. So I'm at declination, and I'm at latitude minus 34. So I can, sorry, this is right ascension. Okay, so I can set declination, let's say minus 30 to 90. And now all the objects in the result are transiting north of my location. And
that's fantastic.
Wow.
That's an easy way to filter a lot of objects out.
Wow.
Of course, the inverse is also true. You can empty this and set maximum declination to minus 30 or minus 35. And you can see all objects transiting south. And this is the main idea of, this is what what I wanted to achieve with the first version of Telescopius. So it was to have a huge database of objects and filter them according to my preferences, instead of having to browse through the sky of a planetarium software, zooming in and zooming out, and that kind of stuff.
Right. Oh, that's fantastic. You saved me a whole bunch of time. Where do I send my check?
Thanks.
Well, actually, Telescopius is free. As long as I run this, I plan this to be the case. I mean, there, especially for people who are just starting on this beautiful hobby, paying for expensive software is not an option. Or maybe it's an option, but you're just starting and you don't want to invest a lot right ahead, right from start. So this completely free. Donations are accepted, of course. Let me go back a bit to the presentation where I can briefly acknowledge the sponsors we have, because actually Telescopius was born free, and I was able to host it and pay for it from my pockets at the beginning, but now it's grown to be a little monster. And well, we have the remote imaging partners, iTelescope, Inside Observatory, Remote Skies, and Sky Gems, who are sponsors to Telescopius, and Tolga Astro as well. And there are over 150 monthly patrons, either through Patreon or PayPal, users who are supporting Telescopius. And of course, a lot of users reach out with their suggestions and bug reports. And that's also a great way to contribute to the project. So that's huge. Thank you to all of them.
Excellent. Well, Sebastian, thank you so much. We could talk endlessly about this tool. I still need to work on it as well and get more proficient with it. But again, this is a free tool. They just go to telescopius.com, correct?
That's right.
And you set up, you sign up a free account, and you can literally start learning, how to navigate this tool, build objects list, plan your next observing session. Even if you're just getting started in astronomy, this is a great way to kind of learn and plan for the future, and a free, a way to get into, start dabbling in this hobby for free. So, Sebastian, can't thank you enough. This truly is a labor of love for amateur astronomy, backyard astronomy. I'm going to be really excited to see how this tool evolves over time. I've never seen anything quite as, as advanced as this. So really an invaluable resource. So again, telescopius.com, go there, sign up, get a free account, support Sebastian. And yeah, this is just another fantastic way to get started in astronomy. So with that, I'll kind of wrap things up here. If you have any other comments, Keith, throw it back over to you.
I'm good. Thank you, Sebastian, so much. Pleasure meeting you. Appreciate everything you do, buddy.
Thanks a lot,
Likewise.
Sebastian.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back. Your homework assignment is to learn Telescopius. I know I need to spend some time learning it as well, but great tool. Hopefully you got a lot of information out of this interview. If you have any questions, please enter them into the chat box or send us an email, memphisastronomicalsociety@gmail.com. We can follow up with Sebastian on anything you have, maybe even schedule a follow-up interview. But again, this is a free website tool. Just go to telescopius.com, and really an invaluable resource, especially if you're planning astrophotography sessions. Now again, our website is memphisastro.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. Take a minute to subscribe to this channel. And if you would like to join our email list, go to joinmas.com, enter your name and email. That kind of wraps up this meeting. Had a lot of content tonight. Hope you guys got a lot of value out of it. We will have these sessions recorded on our YouTube channel for playback. And also we'll break out the Wally Pacholka interview, and the Sebastian Garcia interview. So thanks again, guys, for joining us. Feel free again to just leave your comments or questions in the chat room. Send us an email at memphisastronomicalsociety.com. And again, don't forget to download the August sky map and the membership application in the links below. For Jeremy Veldman, thanks again for taking the time to join us, and we'll see you next month.